please. Father Stewart?
Father Stewart, can you confirm if you're in the meeting, please? I think I saw you in the lobby when I let members of the public in. I've unmuted you, so you should be able to confirm.
Hello, can you see me now?
I can hear you. Yes, we can hear and see.
Oh, well, bad luck on the seeing.
I'm sure it's not so. But you do have a halo over your head.
Well, always, always.
But we've lost Father Stewart now.
I'm still here, I think. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Super.
That's not a halo, it's a little hat.
I know, but it looked like a halo. Right, could we begin with the prayers, please?
Of course, as always, it's great to you, and thank you for your invitation. Today's St. David's Day. As you all probably know, the Welsh go absolutely mad, whether they win at rugby or not. But St. David, I think, was a bit of he was a bit of a picnic a few sandwiches short, really. As he welcomed new monks in, sorry, that's probably unpolitically correct, isn't it? I'm sorry. As he welcomed new monks into his community, he made them 119, which is a vast psalm. It's 179 verses long, but he used to make them in the sea up to their chests, and so they would have been up to the freezing cold water up to their chests, for 79 verses. So it was a bit of a sadist, if you ask me, but there we go. I'm not Welsh, so I can say that. So a prayer for St. David, and then the Lord's Prayer. Almighty God, who called your servant David to be the and wise steward of your mysteries for the peoples of Wales, in your mercy grant that, following his purity of life and his zeal for the gospel of Christ, we may with him receive the crown of everlasting life. Amen.
Amen.
And we say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Every blessing on your discussions and decisions today, and I hope I'll be able to see you in the flesh sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Stewart.
Oh, am I muted? Am I on mute? Right. I was just saying that we've got yellow paper today because, of course, the daffodil is the colour and they're a national emblem. So, and it's my birthday. So thank you very much.
Oh,
indeed.
happy birthday.
Thank you.
Many, many happy returns.
Thank you. I better behave now. So thank you very much indeed. So now we need to, I'm unmuted, aren't I? I need to read out what we're doing here. So here's the chairman's welcome. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Monday, the 1st of March. My name is Councillor Breda Griffin and I'm the chairman of the council. Welcome to this virtual meeting of South Kesteven District Council. I would like to begin by welcoming all councillors and officers and also those members of the press and public who are joining our meeting today. As we begin today's proceedings, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the meeting is being recorded. Please can I also ask you to turn off any telephones or put them onto silent mode and to remove any possible distractions. Any councillor who wishes to speak should use the chat function and type a comment such as me, speak or next. The chat box should only be used for members of the council requesting to speak, voting during exception votes and requesting technical support. You can also use the chat function to indicate that you would like to raise a point of order or a point of personal explanation. Can I also ask that members indicate through the chat function if they are intending to leave the meeting? No other comments will be noted or considered. When invited to speak, you should turn on your microphone. Please do your best to remember to mute your microphone once you have finished speaking. We've got another person. Should you forget, we will be able to mute it for you. The length of time for speeches remains 5 minutes. You'll be warned when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. Wherever we can through this meeting, we will use voting by exception, where councillors will be asked to type against or abstain in the chat box. It will be taken that anybody who does not type against or abstain is voting in favour of the proposition. The only occasions we will be using a roll call vote will be if a recorded vote is requested. I will ask the Chief Executive to help us guide through the voting procedure that we will use as we work through the agenda. I would also like to let you know how I intend to run the meeting. I will be sticking to the rules of debate set out in the Constitution, of which I'd like to give you a brief reminder. A member may speak once on substantive motions and once on each amendment that is put. Other than exercising a right to reply at the end of debate on a substantive motion or an amendment, the only time a member may speak a second time is to raise a point of order or a point of personal explanation. Points of order may only relate to an alleged breach of the council procedure rules or the law. Any councillor who wishes to raise a point of order must indicate the rule or law and the way in which they consider it has been broken. A point of personal explanation may only relate to some material part of an earlier speech made by the councillor, which may appear to have been misunderstood during the course of debate. I will take a firm line on the use of both conventions, and the ruling of the chairman will be final. As chairman, I will be exercising my discretion at this meeting on the running order of the agenda. So, Agenda 8, Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme, will now move ahead of that of the Pay Policy Statement at Agenda 6. Agenda Item 7, Budget Proposals for 2021-22 and Indicative Budgets for 2022-23 and 2023-24 remain as Agenda Item 7. And Agenda Item 6, Pay Policy Statement 2021-22, will now move to Agenda Item 8. Agenda Item 11, Notices of Motion. Councillor Charmaine Morgan has withdrawn her motion. Also, because of the withdrawal of the motion, Item 4 will tell us about points of interest and to disclose points of interest. That will be used only for other things, not for our agenda item 11. And so we will now begin to work our way through today's agenda. So, agenda item 1 is public open forum, but there are no public questions, so we can move on now to agenda item 2, which is the register of attendance and apologies for absence. Can I please ask Naomi, the Democratic Officer, to confirm the presence of all members in attendance at the meeting? Where a member doesn't respond, she will move on to call the next member. Once the list has been completed, the names of any member from whom no response has been received will be recalled. There is still no response. That member will be recorded as having not attended. So Naomi will invite each member in turn to indicate their attendance.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll begin that now. Councillor Bob Adams.
Present.
Councillor Ashley Baxter.
Present.
Councillor David Bellamy.
Present.
Councillor Harris Bisnal Singh.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Pam Bosworth.
Present.
Councillor Bob Broughton.
Present.
Councillor George Chivers.
Present.
Councillor Louise Clack.
Present.
Councillor Callum Cook.
Present.
Councillor John Cottier.
Present.
Thank you. Councillors, could I please ask you to mute your microphones until your name's called out, because we're getting a lot of background noise at the minute. Thank you. Councillor Helen Crawford.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor John Dawson.
Present.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
Present, but I'm having IT problems. Request assistance.
Okay, thank you. We'll pass that on and get someone in IT to give you a call. Thank you. Councillor Barry Dobson.
Present.
Councillor Mike Exton.
Present.
Councillor Paul Fellows.
Present.
Councillor Helen Gorrell.
Present.
Councillor Breda Griffin. Chairman, could you please indicate you're present for me? I know that you are, but just for the sake of the recording.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Jan Hampson.
Present.
Councillor Graham Gill.
Present.
Can you just confirm for me that your IT issues are now sorted, Councillor Gill?
I think so.
Okay, great, thank you. Councillor Gloria Johnson.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Rosemary Cabery Brown.
Present.
We've received apologies from Councillor Anna Kelly. Councillor Jane Kingman.
Present.
Councillor Philip Knowles.
Present.
Councillor Matthew Lee.
Present.
Councillor Nikki Manterfield.
Present.
Councillor Annie Mason.
Present.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
Present.
Councillor Virginia Moran.
Present.
Councillor Charmaine Morgan. I can't currently see Councillor Morgan on the list of attendees. I'll come back to her.
Naomi, this is the Chief Exec. I have actually had a message that Councillor Morgan is unable to attend this afternoon and tenders her apologies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
get that recorded. Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Robert Reid.
Present.
We've received apologies from Councillor Nick Robbins. Councillor Susan Sandal.
Present.
Councillor Ian Selby.
Happy birthday, Madam Chairman. Present.
Thank you. Councillor Jackie Smith.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Judy Smith.
Present.
Councillor Lee Steptoe.
Present.
Councillor Judy Stevens.
Present.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
Present.
Councillor Ian Stokes.
Present.
Councillor Jill Thomas.
Present.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
Present.
Councillor Sarah Trotter. Councillor Trotter. I'll come back to Councillor Trotter. Councillor Dean Ward.
Present.
Councillor Hannah Westrop.
Present.
Councillor Hilary Westrop.
Present.
Councillor Amanda Wheeler.
Present.
Councillor Mark Whittington.
Present.
Councillor Jane Wood.
Present.
Councillor Paul Wood.
Present.
Councillor Sue Woolley.
Present.
Councillor Linda Wotton.
Present.
And Councillor Ray Wotton.
Present.
Thank you. Just going to go back to Councillor Sarah Trotter.
Naomi, if I can just interlude. So Councillor Trotter is just having some technical issues and she's just rebooting her laptop so she can rejoin.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. Madam Chairman, apart from those couple of people that are having technical issues, we've got everyone in the meeting apart from those that have sent apologies. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. I should now like, on behalf of the District Council, to pass on our condolences to Councillor Anna Kelly on the passing of her brother, Councillor Bill Turner, who lately was Mayor of Stamford. Sadly, he has passed away, and today it is his funeral which is taking place. So our wishes go to her and her family. Thank you. Right, item 3, disclosure of interests. I have talked about that earlier. If there are any interests to be disclosed, perhaps we can do those as the meeting progresses. Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to remind members that a disclosable pecuniary interest is an interest any member holds where they or their spouse or civil partner is likely to receive any financial benefit or disadvantage because of the decision that is being made. For example, this could be as a result of their employment or a dividend they have in respect of an affected business. It also covers any land they hold. Once you've declared an interest, you should leave the meeting, not speak or vote on the debate. Please remain in the virtual lobby if you can, but if you leave the Skype meeting or the technology provides any difficulties, please be assured you'll be invited back into the meeting once the agenda item has been concluded. So if any members have any interest to be disclosed, please indicate in the chat show now. Right, thank you. If during debate it becomes clear to you that you have a disclosable pecuniary interest in an item, you should indicate in the chat box by typing the word interest. I will call on you to disclose that interest and then you'll be required to leave the virtual meeting for the remainder of that time. Once that item of business is complete, you'll be invited back to the meeting. We will now proceed to the next item of business. Okay. So, agenda item 4, meetings held on the 28th of January 2021. This item is to confirm the minutes from the last ordinary meeting of Council held on 28th of January 2021 as a correct record. Any correction should be regarding the accuracy of the substance of the minutes, not typographical errors, which should have been raised with the Democratic Services team when the minutes were circulated. If you wish to make any corrections to the minutes, please indicate that you would like to speak using the chat function. Thank you. All right. So, yeah.
Madam Chairman, did you want me to just come in at that point with some
Yes,
corrections? There are a number of three corrections to make, if I may. First is that Councillor Gloria Johnson was missed off the attendance list, so apologies to Councillor Johnson for that. That will be corrected. The second amendment is to minute 67. That's in respect of members' open questions. And it's question 10. It was a question asked by Councillor Fellows. I regret neither the question nor the answer have been fully or properly recorded. Councillor Fellows' question was really in respect of asking the leader whether there had been any public consultation prior to the installation of the Baroness Thatcher statue, and the answer given was that there had been a consultation as part of the planning process, but none other than that. And so with that, that question and answer will both be corrected. And Madam Chairman, the final amendment is to question 11, which was a question from Councillor Exton. You'll see that the question suggests that there was a reference to Exeter Street and Exeter Road. Unfortunately, that was just misheard. It was extra streets and roads. So that also will be corrected. Part of the perils of remote meetings, I think. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. And we did have one for, but I think that's Gloria should have been all right. Yes. So could I ask Gloria Johnson if she'd like to speak, please?
It's been dealt with, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? No.
I've got my name in the chat box, but the officer
It's been sorted.
answered my query.
Right, thank you.
Madam Chair, my name's in the chat box and it hasn't been sorted.
Right. So, Councillor Knowles, would you like to say?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chair. I'm sorry to spoil your birthday by starting the meeting with a bit of a problem, but it needs most, I'm afraid. I refer to item 63 on page 7. And this was the discussion about the local council tax support scheme. And I refer to item 4, paragraph 4, beg your pardon. Recommendations of the report, including the amendment, were seconded. That's what the minutes state. As you see, 2 paragraphs later, it does say that a point of order was raised in relation to the change of recommendation before members. The monitoring officer clarified that the cabinet member was able to change the recommendations detailed in the report prior to them being considered. As you may recall, I challenged this last time on the basis that an amendment cannot overturn completely a proposal. An amendment can change and alter, but not overturn a proposal. I put it to the legal officer, who said that it was just a different proposal and therefore was not an amendment, but it was a different proposal. I have had discussions with the legal officer since, and we've had a good discussion about this, and we recognise, each of us recognise that you can take, an item 2 different ways, but I still maintain that you cannot introduce new business or change a proposal radically, overturn it, without giving notice on the agenda. If I wish to bring something up at this meeting, I had a requirement to bring it up by a certain date so that it would appear on the agenda. I couldn't suddenly spring something on at this meeting. But when we get down to the minute says that the recommendations of the report, including the amendment, were seconded. It cannot include the amendment because the amendment was unconstitutional. It was against all the rules of debate. So that statement is wrong, and I would still maintain that what we did on that day was unconstitutional. If you bear with me for one more minute while I sort of give the background to this, the Cabinet agreed unanimously that the local council tax support scheme should not apply to special police. Presumably, when Councillor Dilks put a proposal on, and then subsequently, I believe, at the Conservative Party meeting before the event, there was quite a lot of people who felt this was an ill-judged decision, shall we say, and then it was decided to change that and reverse it. The way to reverse it was you cannot amend it to reverse it, and it cannot be introduced as new business because you've not given 7 days notice. The way to amend it was to withdraw it and take Councillor Dilks' proposal and pass that, which would have affected what the Cabinet then wanted to affect. And so I ask the legal officer once again to guide us on this. The minutes are wrong, and I believe the principle was wrong, but the minutes are certainly wrong as they stand now. Thank you. I'm sorry to be difficult.
Okay. Would you like to reply?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Knowles. As Councillor Knowles says, we did have a discussion about this. My view is that when a recommendation comes forward in a paper to Council, that is a recommendation. It's a recommendation that has been proposed by officers who are in the large part writing the papers. A proposal is something that is put forward at the meeting based usually largely on the recommendation, but it doesn't have to be. So the proposal that came forward was of course different to what Cabinet had decided, but nonetheless it was a proposal that was put forward, and then that was seconded and that was voted on. So there is a contrary view, but in the public sector, I have discussed this with colleague monitoring officers, and in the main, this is the interpretation that is accepted. I do see that the minute where it says the recommendations of the report, including the amendment, were seconded, that isn't accurate. So I think that really ought to say the recommendations of the report were proposed, including an amendment to that, including an amendment. So it's the proposal that was.
Use the word amendment. Beg your pardon. Beg your pardon, Shaheen. You cannot use the word amendment. You can say that the proposal as that was then presented was accepted and proposed and accepted and so on, but you cannot use the word amendment because the amendment was wrong.
Yes, the proposal was changed. The proposal was changed and tabled differently at the meeting.
Yes,
so
I'm sorry for that. Sorry.
No, I understand the difference, and it's an important one in constitutional terms. I will make sure that change gets made. The difficulty with Councillor Knowles' interpretation is that if by the time papers come forward and a proposal is going to be different, it will really stymie business if 7 days notice has to be given. Therefore, the pragmatic approach that most local authorities take is for the recommendations to be simply that, recommendations, and then proposals come forward based on those recommendations. And that allows the smooth running of business. So I hope that assists Councillor Knowles, and with that amendment, I hope that at least makes it technically correct, even if you don't agree with the interpretation.
May I just say thank you for your comments, and to the chair. I did take the chair's ruling last time, and I take the ruling of Shaheen now, the legal officer now, because I take the chair's ruling, and if that's it, so be it. As you know, I have a different view, and so other legal minds have a different view, but I take your view and I will accept it. And thank you for changing the minutes, because they do need to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Fellows to speak, please?
It's been totally dealt with by Shaheen. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew to speak, please?
Thank you, Chairman. With the amendments being accepted, I'd like to propose that we accept the minutes of the January meeting.
Oh.
Thank you. And I've got Councillor Adam Stokes.
Yeah, I'm just going to second that, please, Chairman.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
No.
So somebody sounds so not happy. Okay, then. So can we take it to the vote now? Could I ask the Chief Executive to explain which way we're voting for this one?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You can vote by exception on this one. It's been proposed and seconded to accept the minutes as amended by Council today. So therefore, you can do that through exception mode. So if anybody is against or would like to abstain, please do so in the chat function now. Thank you.
Did I get it?
Richard?
Yeah.
The my thing won't work. My
thing won't work.
We have some interesting meetings.
We do, Chairman, we do. Oh dear.
Madam Chairman, we have nobody against and we have 2 abstentions. So that means there's 50 members in support of the approval of the minutes.
Okay, so that's votes passed then. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right, okay, and the next item 5 is the Chairman to provide an update. Sadly, there's not a lot taking place or going to, but we will be having on March the 8th the flag raising to mark the Commonwealth Day. So although we won't have the children like we did last year, which was great fun, but we will recognise the day by having the flag raised. I have attended a number of virtual meetings, and I have done some training with the Lincolnshire Association of Local Councils, and that was very informative. It was looking at the roles of councillors from all sorts of places, which was brilliant because we had some with very, very small villages. I think Stamford was the largest parish. Then we had all in between. We had some from near Sutton-on-Sea. We had them further north, and it was great because we actually had a lot of people in different areas, different sorts of things. So we actually had a very good workshops, and we were put into groups, kept changing groups, so that made sure that we met everybody. And I would really say that would be a good idea if we perhaps revisited the role of the model of the councillor, just to have a look at that and make sure we take some of those things on board. And on the 25th of February, I attended the Lincolnshire Youth Commission Big Conversation, which was arranged through the Lincoln Police and Crime Commission. Sadly, I had to leave it just as they were about to break out into, not break out with the police, but break out with, thank you, Callum, you got it, to get sorted out into groups with them. But sadly I didn't hear that, but it was a fantastic effort from students from age of 14 to 24, and they came up with all sorts of different things, and one of them was about lighting, being worried about walking down streets with lighting. I can say about the worrying about streets with lighting, and sadly I'm not 14 to 24 anymore, but we've had some lights go out twice, 2 years following, in very, very dark places. It seems that when we change the clocks so that the lights don't work properly. In fact, it was so dark that I actually drove past the entrance to the street because the service roads had lost their lights as well. So I think that could be something that we actually looked into. And then to say thank you very much for the comments about the jargon buster. But I really did feel that we were getting bogged down with all these, and I will use hopefully the right word this time, the abbreviations. How did it start? Well, it was one of our meetings, and we were talking about dashboards and no S's or whatever. I wasn't sure if that was outside, outsize, open-sided, oversexed, oversubscribed, you name it. And I thought, well, what do we do? A dashboard. We've got another board now. We've got a dashboard, surfboard, speedboard, you name it. So I think I spent more time thinking, what does it mean, than actually being able to read it and just get on with it. So I said, I think we should do something about it. So I did, or somebody else did. And I think I would like to take it a little bit further, in that the words that appertain to certain committees are, and their abbreviations, perhaps it would be a good idea if we had those written at the top. Why do I say this? Because if somebody is substituting for a committee member and it's not their committee, it is very difficult to know what is going on. Dealing with careers at one time in my career, I had to go to Essendine, small village between Stamford and Bourne. It was Fiat Alice who had an engineering firm there. They'd helped build up the little village hall, so I had to attend. I was the only female, and we get there and they're talking about all sorts of things, and I put my hand up and say, I'm very sorry, I can't really join in this conversation because I don't know what this all means. So, all right, my dear, I will explain it. So they explained it. At tea time, all the guys came up and said, thank God you came, thank God you said it, because we hadn't a clue either. So I said, why didn't you open your mouth and ask? But there we go. So anyway, thank you very much for supporting all of that and hearing such a diatribe. Right, okay. We now go on to page, or not on to page, but we're on to agenda item 6, public decarbonisation scheme. Oh, I've got here now. I'm going to go to item 8. Report. Oh, goodness me. Anyway, I think that should be 6, shouldn't it? Yes, it's not me. I'm just having a mad moment. Right, we're going on to item 6. A report from the Cabinet Member for Commercial Operations, Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley, on the Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme. And I would now like to invite him to present the report. Hopefully I've got this the right way around, have I?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and thank you for the illustration of the jargon buster there as well. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the day when we can all obviously meet in person, and that day will come soon. But in absence of that, I'm delighted to bring a proposal to the council today, and I do apologise for its lateness. There was one particular item within the paper that we needed to get strict clarification on with regards to a deadline. Now that deadline expires at 5 p.m. today, which is why this paper has been brought before the council and moved up the agenda somewhat. This all started a few months back when the government launched a public sector decarbonisation scheme and allocated £1 billion worth of funding towards it. Our team worked to put together proposals to take advantage of this scheme and submitted them on time, and at that time we were expecting quite a rapid turnaround because there are some strict deadlines with regards to delivery as well on this particular fund. Unfortunately, those deadlines weren't made by the government, or in fact it was Salix at the time in terms of their acknowledgements, and of course this has put things back somewhat. However, we were invited to a meeting earlier this year to talk about the oversubscription to this fund, and that left us in the opinion that we weren't successful. However, shortly afterwards we were offered what we'd put in for, and the government has worked out another way of funding this so that its oversubscription can be managed. Now this is a very significant offer. This is £950,000 worth of public sector decarbonisation enhancements across our assets of public buildings. You'll see on page 5 of the report, item 1.4, how that's broken down, but it covers St Peter's Hill, South Kesteven House, the Guildhall Arts Centre and the Bourne Corn Exchange to varying levels, some of these levels being quite significant. We estimate that we will save over 220 tonnes of carbon each year. Now, bearing in mind the Carbon Trust baseline for us indicated we would need to allocate at least 170 tonnes a year to meet our 30% target by 2030, this puts us in an excellent place to significantly impact on that. And therefore it is a great thing. It is an incredibly rare offer. This is something that doesn't come along very often, and I'm very pleased that the team have been able to put this together in such short order. But as I say, we do have to get our signatures on the paper and those papers in before 5 p.m. today. So I'll draw members' attention to the recommendations on the report, which is to approve the addition of £950,370 to the 2020-21 budget to reflect external grant funding to be received from the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy and/or Salix for carbon reduction initiatives within the council buildings. Secondly, to delegate authority to the Section 151 officer to accept that money in a Section 31 grant and enter into an agreement with the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy and/or Salix for receipt of the grant. And furthermore, the final recommendation to delegate authority to the Director for Commercial and Operations in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Commercial and Operations to commission the works, draw down from the grant funding and undertake any other required action in order to meet the grant conditions. So I'm delighted to bring that to the Council today, and I'll open up for debate, please.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Johnson to speak, please?
I'd like to second that. I think it's a no-brainer.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter. Councillor Baxter?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I also was going to second, but I'm quite happy to give way to Councillor Johnson to do that. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that it hasn't been made a big deal of at Environment Committee, but I guess that's due to the government's typically short deadlines for this kind of environmental action. Nobody's going to vote against amending the budget to accommodate a grant of £1 million. But this does mean that we need to crack on with the work, and I look forward to it happening very soon. I didn't get the papers. I don't think I got the papers at all, but I understand from other councillors that it was in the third envelope that we received for this meeting. So I've just looked through the information online, and I'm happy to support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Wood.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, well, this is an exceptional offer. There's not many times that you get an offer of giving you £950,000, is it? It's exceptional. All I want to say is congratulations to everybody involved with it. I'm sure everybody will vote for it. It's a tight time scale, but an exceptional, fantastic offer. Well done to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Callum Cook.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, as you know, back in September 2019, we made that formal declaration of a climate emergency and confirmed the political ambition to reduce our carbon footprint by at least 30% by 2030 and aim to be net zero carbon as soon as viable before 2050. And of course, I'm delighted, as I'm sure most members are, and hope this is a unanimous vote, that we have received in principle a major boost in helping us to achieve these ambitions, with us set to receive nearly £1 million. And of course, this funding will help us in our mission to make these ageing buildings more energy efficient, significantly reduce the council's carbon footprint, as well as contributing towards our own carbon reduction goals. The work will also help to reduce the ongoing running costs as well of the buildings for the foreseeable future. So it's an important opportunity that will see all the capital costs covered for a project that will bring about a significant reduction in carbon emissions, and will see us leading the charge and encouraging carbon reduction across the district. So I hope all members will support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you everybody else. And for myself, I think, as somebody said, this is a no-brainer because obviously the Guildhall and the Bourne Corn Exchange are going to benefit from this hugely. So I wholeheartedly support. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley, you're going to propose?
Yes, I am indeed, Madam Chairman.
And Councillor Gloria Johnson is seconding?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, then, thank you. So, Councillor Peter Mosley, would you like to sum up?
I think there's hardly need to sum up, but I'm very grateful, obviously, to the support from members for this. I hope that they will support it through its through the project, and I'm really looking forward to seeing a decarbonised public asset structure within the council as a consequence of this grant. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. It is my intention that we will vote by exception. Please indicate in the chat box if you do not support the proposition by typing against or abstain, and we'll give you a minute to do this. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, from the chat function, there's nobody abstaining and there's nobody against, so therefore it's a unanimous decision. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Well done. Now we go on to item 7, the budget proposals for 2021-22 and indicative budgets for 2022-23 and 2023-24. We now have a report from the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Adam Stokes, regarding the budget proposals for 2021 and indicative budgets for 2022-23 and 2023-24. I would now like to invite Councillor Adam Stokes to present the report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you and good afternoon, members. I'm pleased to be able to present to the Council the budget proposals and the recommended council tax bandy charge for the financial year 21-22. I'm also pleased to present the indicative budgets for the years 22-23 and 23-24. I would also like to take this opportunity to confirm that at tomorrow's Cabinet meeting, a decision will be taken to no longer allocate £100,000 from the Local Priorities Reserve to underwrite the public realm improvements to support the unveiling of the statue. Therefore, following this decision, the reserve movements for 2021, as shown at Appendix C, will be updated. The report in front of you is the culmination of 5 months' hard work, which started last September, running parallel with Council approving an amended 2021 budget, and all members being provided throughout the financial year with an up-to-date spend and forecasting information in response to the most extremely financially challenging period this Council has ever faced with the COVID pandemic. I'm extremely grateful to Councillor Gill and all members of the FEDCO Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their careful diligence and support throughout the previous financial year, and I'm sure I look forward to this continuing in the forthcoming financial year. Of course, such a workload cannot be done in isolation, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank my Cabinet colleagues, FEDCO and Budget Joint OSC, the finance team and all budget managers across the Council in supporting the formation of the budget proposals. The budget proposals have undergone robust scrutiny by members of the Budget Joint OSC on the 13th of January and the whole of the South Kesteven residents and businesses during the last 2 weeks of January. The feedback from the consultation was that just over 34% supported the council tax increase to the council's portion of council tax of £5 per Band D property. Members will also note that over 66% of our residents reside in Band A to C properties, so their increase will be between 6 to 8p a week. Therefore, I am recommending that the council's element of the council tax charge is increased by £5 for a Band D property. Members will be aware that the council's element of the overall council tax charge, council tax bill, is only approximately 9%. And members are reminded that the government's annual announced increase in core spending power of local authorities of 4.5% is largely assuming that the council will be taking the opportunity to maximise the council tax increase available. Members at the Budget Joint OSC provided feedback with respect to the indicative fees and charges increases being considered in respect of Stamford's pay and display car parking. I committed to reviewing this with Councillor Dr Peter Mosley, and I'm pleased to confirm that this increase will now be 10p less per tariff than the proposed tariffs presented to the Joint OSC. Therefore, 1 hour parking in Stamford from April will be £1.20. This reduction in projected income will be met from applying an additional government grant that was mentioned in the provisional settlement announcement. This budget is focused on 3 main strands: supporting the delivery of the corporate plan actions, responding to the COVID recovery plan, and maintaining quality service delivery. Members will agree that all these objectives are being met, but there's also an acceptance that service delivery models need to adapt and that service transformation needs to continue. The details of these proposals are set out at Table 3, the key budgetary proposals. The South Kesteven companies continue to feature as an important part of the service delivery model, and my report provides total transparency of the proposed levels of funding for each company. Their activities will continue to be reviewed by the Companies Committee during the course of the forthcoming year. Of course, the funding proposals for Leisure SK Limited were formulated before the current lockdown was announced. Therefore, the centres have remained closed, and although we look forward to the phased reopening in the spring following the announcement by the Prime Minister, it is likely that the funding model of 500,000 may not be sufficient for the 21-22 financial year, and therefore I'm suggesting that this figure will need looking at again once an updated business plan has been reviewed and agreed. There are financial challenges and there is still much uncertainty for the months ahead, but I'm pleased to confirm that the Budget Stabilisation Reserve remains in place and can be bolstered by a further £1 million as part of a one-off government COVID-related funding in order to provide a resilient financial cushion to balance the books without any service cuts. In terms of the reserves, I would draw members to the robustness of the budget estimates and the adequacy of reserves at paragraph 7.5. This should provide members with sufficient reassurance that the financial position of the Council is strong. In terms of the pay proposals for 21-22, the budget has been formulated following the government guidance of a pay freeze for the year, with the exception of a 1% pay increase for those earning less than £24,000. However, I am grateful to Councillor Louise Clack for highlighting the Council has an opportunity to follow the real living wage for its lowest paid employees. And it was also mentioned by Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor. I'm pleased today to confirm that it's my intention to incorporate this into the budget proposals presented today. This will impact on a number of the published recommendations, and I will set out these in due course. I will now draw your attention to the housing revenue account, which is also facing financial challenges. Facing a reduced income budget due to a lower than expected rent increase and facing rising expenditure means the HRA is facing a financial challenge. Therefore, I am only able to present a 12-month budget rather than a 36-month in order to avoid a negative working balance being reached. I, alongside my colleague, Councillor Robert Reid, will be working throughout 2021 to bring expenditure back down to affordable levels and put the HRA back to a financially sustainable position. Finally, in respect to the capital programmes, I am pleased to confirm that for the next 12 months, no external borrowing is required to fund both programmes, but the ambition of the HRA is drawing down reserves to low levels, which will require careful managing. Similarly, for the General Fund, in the absence of capital receipts being received in the next financial year, the reserves too for the General Fund will be reduced. Of course, the capital programme at this time does not include any leisure development ambitions, as they are still being considered and proposals for these being brought forward. And these brought forward at the appropriate time. Members will have received the late papers relating to the council tax setting resolution. This is due to the timing of the setting of the council tax level for the Police and Crime Commissioner, which was only on the 24th of February. The resolution report brings together all the relevant charges from the precepting authorities and sets the overall council tax amount for every property for our district. Members will be asked to vote on this item separately after the budget has been considered and approved. Whilst Appendix B sets out proposed capital slippage from the current financial year, their figures will be kept under review and the actual approved slippage will be considered by the Governance and Audit Committee in May or June of this year as part of the financial outturn position for 2021. Therefore, Madam Chairman, I am pleased to recommend the budget proposals for 2021 with the following amendments and look forward to support from across the Council to support a budget that continues to deliver the corporate plan ambitions, maintains quality services and supports, most importantly, our communities and residents. So the recommendations 1 and 6 on the General Fund changes, there'll be 2 amendments there. So recommendation 1 will now read to set a General Fund budget requirement of 13.893 million for 2021, detailed at section 3 of this report and shown in a detail at Appendix A, inclusive of special expenses. Number 6, to approve the movements in the General Fund revenue and capital reserves and balances detailed at section 7 of this report and shown at Appendix C, incorporating a reduction of the local priority reserve by 24,000 to a balance of 4.045 million as at March 2022. And there's going to be 2 recommendation changes on the housing revenue account, recommendations 14 and 17. 14 will now read to approve the HRA revenue statement for the year 21-22 shown by Appendix A and increase the total expenditure line 15 by 12,000 to 18.018 million, and 17 to approve the movements in HRA revenue and capital reserves and balances detailed at section 7 of this report and shown at Appendix C, incorporating a reduction in the working balance by 12,000 to a balance of 1.55 million as at March 2022. So that is my presentation, Madam Chairman, but please note that recommendations 1 to 9 are a recorded vote, 10 to 17 on the housing revenue account are not recorded, but obviously the late paper, the council tax resolution, is also a recorded vote, A to G. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Callum Cook to speak.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Madam Chairman and fellow councillors. Well, before I make my observations on the budget proposals presented to Council today, I would like to reflect on the last 12 months. It has been an unprecedented year, and that is a year like no other. I would firstly like to place on record my personal thanks on behalf of the Council to our staff, our partners, our businesses and importantly our communities, including to each and every member for the work that you have also undertaken within your own wards in supporting your local residents. All have risen to the challenges presented in responding to a global health pandemic that has fundamentally changed our lives and livelihoods. The budget setting process this year has been immensely difficult as we continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and the pressure that it has put on our communities and businesses and on the services we deliver as a council. But we have been bold in our approach to budget setting, ensuring that we continue to deliver the best services for our residents whilst also delivering value for money and a balanced budget. Our vision, as agreed last year in our corporate plan, is for South Kesteven to be the best place to live, work and visit. The budget presented to you today fully supports our vision. Our priority over the past year has been to support our communities, and our council has gone above and beyond during this time. Last year, our community hub swung into immediate action. Hub volunteers contacted nearly 18,000 vulnerable residents personally to offer support and have made thousands of calls to vulnerable residents as part of our befriending programme. The pandemic has put pressure on local health services, and we've worked with health colleagues to ensure there are testing and vaccination centres conveniently located across our district in both Grantham and Stamford, continuing to support all of our residents across the district. But there are also many more examples that are testament to the Council's dedication in ensuring that we provide the best services for our communities. With so many households facing financial difficulties, we have supported more than 7,800 households through the Council Tax Hardship Fund. Our Community Fund has helped to attract more than £2.5 million of additional funds for community and voluntary groups across the district. And with local businesses having to close to slow the spread of the virus, Invest SK, along with our own council staff, have worked tirelessly to support the local economy, administering over £39 million in business grants. In October, obviously, we as a council agreed the creation of Leisure SK to manage our leisure provision, to enhance the health and well-being of our communities, as well as bringing forward exciting new investment plans. In November, we submitted an ambitious planning application to create a new community in Stamford called St Martin's Park, with around 190 homes, 30% of which that will be affordable, as well as business space, retirement living and other community benefits. And at the end of last year, we were handed a late Christmas present when we heard the news that Grantham has been provisionally awarded £5.56 million towards its regeneration ambitions from the government's Future High Streets Fund. And I also want us to seek to secure additional funding for our other market towns. Now, none of these incredible milestones would have been made possible without the commitment and hard work of our staff, which is why I am immensely proud to support the proposal that all our staff are paid at least the real living wage, because we believe and agree that a fair day's work deserves a fair day's pay. So thank you, Councillor Clack, for bringing forward this proposal, and I hope all members will support it in full, as Councillor Stokes has already advocated. However, I must also be transparent about the challenges that lie ahead. The Council's finances have been hit hard by the pandemic, and as such, we are leaving no stone unturned to ensure we deliver the right services efficiently and effectively. Now, as Councillor Stokes has already mentioned in relation to the unveiling event, as we all know, last year, as a council, we decided to underwrite the figure of up to £100,000 for the unveiling event to the statue of Baroness Thatcher, and this was based on the unveiling to take place in May 2021. However, as this has now been delayed until COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted, we now have the time to fundraise all of the funds required prior to the event, and therefore no longer need to use any allocation of underwriting or forward funding from South Kesteven District Council. This will mean the whole unveiling event and preparations will be privately funded through donations without the need for any underwriting or forward funding for this event, and the funding for this will be removed from the Council's budget, as Councillor Stokes has advocated. Our corporate plan forms the foundation of our budget proposals that have been presented today. And it is because we take our responsibilities seriously to ensure that the Council is on a sound financial footing that we can invest in the priorities laid out in our plan. For example, in our housing service, we will see further significant investment in grounds maintenance, which will see an improved look and feel to benefit our tenants, putting pride into local communities. We also have a robust plan to fix and address all the matters relating to the housing compliance audit, which we commissioned, and we will continue to work closely with the housing regulator. We have found a solution with charges for car parks so that they remain competitive, but allow us to maintain and improve them. And also, more than that, but enhance and increase the number of parking spaces, particularly in Stamford at the cattle market, where pre-COVID we announced the 100 additional spaces, and I'm proud that that is now back on the table. A further priority is to continue to be a high-performing council, and the budget is at the heart of that. We will continue to transform the council, the way we work, and how we continue to offer the best services with value for money budgets. In terms of the arts, we will continue to invest in making this a place to visit by having vibrant and welcoming art centres with a full programme of events and festivals. In the last year, we've invested significant funds into improving and restoring our own heritage buildings in Bourne, Stamford and Grantham. A clean and sustainable environment is another priority for us, including on our own estate, which is why I was so pleased that we all voted unanimously on the decarbonisation project. Protecting and improving the environment is vitally important, both now and for generations to come, which is why I will continue to support the rollout of more car park charging and encourage the use of cycling and walking across the district. But not just to the environment portfolio. In the last year, our refuse collectors have continued to collect on average 80,000 bins per week. And as we come through the pandemic, we have a foundation on which we can build to ensure that our district grows from a position of strength, with a clear focus on what our communities need to thrive. This is something that we can all be proud of, and which is why I'm pleased to second the budget proposals today and hope that they receive the full support of the Council. And with that, Madam Chairman, I will stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Louise Clark, please?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just picking my video. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure if I could take advice from Shaheen as to whether I need to work through my amendment, or I could just actually just say a few words of thanks. If Shaheen could, do I need to?
Yes, that point of order first, I think.
So Councillor Clack has just asked me a question, but we have just seen a point of order being raised by Councillor Baxter. Under the Constitution, we would take the point of order first, if that's okay. Councillor Clack, I'll come back to your question in a moment.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies to Councillor Clack. My point of order is relating to paragraph 4.11.5 of the Constitution, which is about when a member may speak again. When we're speaking on the budget, I think it would be helpful if we could speak about first of all the general fund, and then the housing fund, and then the other bits, so that the questions are all grouped together sensibly, rather than having a scattergun approach. But that might mean that some members will want to ask more than one question and therefore need more than one speech. So would it be possible, would the council agree that it's a good idea to suspend the motion that forces people to cram all their questions into one speech? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I...
Do you want me to?
Yes.
Madam Chairman, if I can just advise a little bit on that. In reference to the way that the budget is normally dealt with, is that members of council can ask questions on any of them. I can understand why Councillor Baxter is suggesting that. The difficulty that you will have if that is what's adopted this afternoon, if you've got 4 different areas of the budget, therefore each member of council, which we have 55, well actually 52 on the call today, could actually have up to 20 minutes of speaking time each. So that may not be the most effective way of managing. So a member can speak for 5 minutes, of course, and then that I would suggest that if you do want to suspend that part of the Constitution, then you will have to go to a vote on it.
May I come back? Chair?
Yes, certainly.
I think it's daft to suggest that all 56 councillors would have questions on all four items. I mean, there are some councillors that have barely said anything since they were elected, so it's unlikely they're going to suddenly start for 20 minutes each now. So what usually happens at these meetings, to the Chief Executive and the Chair, what usually happens is that before the budget the portfolio holder and the leader speak, we suspend the standing orders relating to the length of speeches and so on. And we didn't do that today. I'm sure that people who are asking questions will be brief and won't need to take all five minutes. This is just about asking questions about particular points in order that we can properly scrutinise the budget. I would like, I don't know what the process is for voting on it or whatever, but it seems to me a good idea. If I'm in a minority of one, then that's fine.
Could I go back to the Chief Executive, please?
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. I hope members are aware we've been working through these budget papers for the last 5 months. All members have had opportunity to feed into the budget papers in joint scrutiny meetings and in other ways. So I do hope we have got a set of budget papers here today that we can support in the majority. I know Councillor Clark brought forward an amendment to the budget which has been proposed and seconded already on the agenda today. Therefore, Madam Chairman, I can only advise if you do want to suspend your council procedure rules of debate, then that would have to be a vote for today.
Thank you. So what do you suggest?
Madam Chairman, Councillor Baxter has put a proposal forward. I don't know if he's got a seconder for that proposal, and then you would go to a vote.
No.
I'll second that proposal. Councillor Moran.
Thank you, Chairman. So then you've got a proposal and a second to suspend standing orders in reference to debate, as Councillor Baxter has 4.11.5. Therefore, it's been proposed, it's been seconded, then we do need to go to a vote. Therefore, I would suggest a vote by exception. So it's in support of the motion, or if you're against or abstaining. So if you're against or abstentions, you would need to then put that as the exceptions voting works into the chat function. Madam Chairman, if I can respond now in reference to the vote that has taken by exception in the chat box. Therefore, the vote falls that the standing orders will not be suspended. Therefore, limitation on questions will be 5 minutes per councillor. Thank you, as per the Constitution.
Thank you. Right, we'll go back to Councillor Louise Clark, please.
Thank you. So I'm working with the interpretation that the Chief Executive has just said that the amendment has been proposed and seconded already. I'm just working with that assumption. Yeah?
Yeah, that's correct.
Lovely, brilliant. So all that's left for me to say then is a really big thank you. As a Labour and Cooperative member, it was really, really exciting to bring forward this amendment. But actually, the Conservative administration has been really helpful with this as well. So particularly Adam Stokes, as Finance Cabinet member, was very generous with his time last week, particularly with the banding practicalities of this amendment. It's an absolute laundry list in terms of thanks for Richard, the Section 151 officer, and he's been really helpful in terms of helping with the financing elements of this. And also the Liberal Democrats, Amanda Wheeler, who sits with the independent group, was going to second this amendment originally, so that was really wonderful there. And also the leader of the independent group, and members of the independent group, including Phil Dilks and Penny, have made constructive points here as well. So this really was a group effort, and it was really lovely to be a part of that. And so I just would like to thank everybody that's been involved with putting forward the wording of this amendment, and I'm really, really excited that it's been incorporated by all sides. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Phil Dokes, please?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Trying to get the video camera on. There we are. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I congratulate Councillor Clack on her work on her amendment to help our lowest paid employees, and I also welcome the response by the portfolio holder and the administration. I also welcome the late and overdue U-turn to reverse the Cabinet's decision on the £100,000, which apparently they will agree to tomorrow, even if it is on the hoof and not even on the Cabinet agenda, which was only published last week. I do wish to make an amendment to the budget, but before I get to that, may I say that a month ago, before the Cabinet voted a second time to set a budget requirement for up to £100,000 to underwrite an event to be held in the coming year to mark the unveiling of a statue in Grantham, I respectfully asked a number of questions, including whether outside consultants had yet been hired to organise the said event. The Leader of the Council bluntly refused to allow any questions from me or indeed from my colleagues Councillor Baxter and Councillor Wheeler to be answered on the same subject, suggesting that the Cabinet was not an opportunity, wrongly in fact, for councillors to ask questions. After what could probably be described at that Cabinet meeting as a Handforth Parish Council moment, Councillor Cook eventually offered to ask an officer to reply to the questions. A month on, I'm still waiting for an answer. So much for transparency and accountability. But I can see that rather than answer the questions, the leadership has chosen to cave in and U-turn, and that has to be welcomed. I would, though, like my questions to be answered, and I will put them in the, or attempt to put them, something's happened there, put them in the chat box. I'm not sure I'll succeed, I'll try. As they are about how public money is to be spent, and one question I do have is, has any of the £100,000 allocated in the budget requirement actually been spent up to this point? I move on, Madam Chairman, if I may, and I beg your indulgence. Given this Council's failure to comply with basic legal requirements as exposed in the recent damning housing non-compliance report, and given that this budget debate is about how we intend spending money in the coming 12 months, I do question the process of how the contract to organise the Thatcher Statue Party will be awarded if it hasn't already been awarded. I still seek assurances now, Madam Chairman, that this Conservative administration will not follow the examples of the Conservative government, which has recently been found to act outside the law and handed massive contracts to their mates without proper transparency or scrutiny. My budget amendment is a simple one. It is this. I'll put it in the chat box. Given the U-turn announced by the portfolio holder that the budget requirement for up to £100,000 set by the Leader and Cabinet in December and confirmed in February to underwrite an event to mark the unveiling of a statue of the late Baroness statue is to be removed from the Council's spending plans for the coming year, I propose that this budget requirement of £100,000 be allocated instead to underwrite food banks and other appropriate charitable or voluntary initiatives providing assistance to those South Kesteven residents who are struggling to put food on the table during the COVID pandemic. For clarity, I will try to put it in the chat box. Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Could I have Councillor Wheeler speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everything that I wanted to say has probably already been said, so I just wanted to thank Councillor Clack for all the hard work she put into producing her amendment. I think how we treat the lowest paid and the least advantageous workers in our organisation says a lot about us as a council. And we saw last summer how quick the council was to act when they discovered that our waste operatives were being underpaid, and they then brought their wages up to a more appropriate level and gave them a bonus. So thanks very much, Councillor Stokes, for supporting Councillor Clack's amendment, which I was going to second, but apparently I no longer need to. I'd also like to join Councillor Dilks in thanking Councillor Cook for his welcome U-turn on the thatch statch. And I really welcome Councillor Dilks' proposal of putting this money into the food bank. So I'd like to, I don't know if anyone else was due to second it, but I'd certainly be happy to second the proposal. Thank you.
Could I have Councillor Robert Reid, please?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me? And hopefully see me too?
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed. Good afternoon, members. I'd like to use the opportunity to talk. I'm sure you'd be interested in further dialogue with the housing revenue account. I'd firstly like to say thank you to Councillor Adam Stokes and the financial officers for their support in what has been a difficult year, and there will be variances that will follow through. COVID has made for difficult times, and I've used the housing rollout team to indeed look into issues with the Riverside, our sheltered housing, heating, also at Manor Court and Stanton Court. Compliance issues, the repositioning of our FRAs, our fire regulations, and indeed you will hear from me on the 16th of March in regard to electric certification and wiring at Cabinet. Where income's concerned, it has been a year of economic downturn, and of course 1% above the retail price index will mean a downturn in rent collection. The budget includes to support the delivery of our compliance action plan, and the HRA is only setting, and I'm comfortable it is only setting a 1-year balance budget due to the working balance, and of course we're awaiting the stock condition survey. We are remembering that we lose 50 houses per year in right to buy. The fundamental review is in place in many aspects of housing, our income revenue, as I've made mention of, and indeed our void improvements. We manage an ageing stock, and this obviously is what warrants our stock condition survey. We now await and look forward to hearing from the Conservative budget on Wednesday the details referred to about a new local rent guarantee scheme of £600. I'd like to talk a little bit about the capital programme proposals, and in particular along the way there has been much said about our new build rollout. So therefore I thought I'd take the opportunity to talking a little bit about it. The 2021 has seen the completion of 14 modular homes, as we know, and the expenditure you will see within the budget for this year is only 384,000 against the budget. Mainly that's been on design fees and for new schemes, and of course there is a little bit left over from the retention of the modular homes. You'll be more interested to know that the further sites progressing in 21-22 financial year budget of 10.5 million. Swinegate's proposal for 24 units is currently being finalised following comments from Historic England. This will be presented to the housing group, and I refer to it as a group, not a board, because I have had problems of clarification when it was known to as a board, which it's broadly the same, but it is a group of officers that do the preparation and make their recommendations to councillors and in particular cabinet members. Therefore, Swinegate will be the first one within this process. Secondly, will be Wellington Way for 14 units, and the housing group. This presentation will be in March, and we're hoping for planning there in May. So just to recap, we expect planning for Swinegate in April and Wellington Way for 14 units in May. Shore Road's proposal for 35 units will be presented in March, and we're hoping that also to be made in May, and that will equal the hopeful delivery of 73 new homes in the next financial year. That is quite apart from what is coming to Cabinet tomorrow, in that from the
30 seconds.
Trinity Road and Meadow Close will provide another 12 units. Lastly, the stock condition report will balance where we actually are with what is capitalised within expenditure and what is repairs, and will have a significant bearing on the 2 following years of our new build programme. Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right.
Getting too involved with something else. Could I ask Shaheen to speak for us now?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's just to clarify what it is we are debating at the moment. Certainly, Councillor Dilks proposed the use of the £100,000 from the local priority reserve. Councillor Dilks, I wasn't clear whether that was the totality of your amendment and whether that was in fact seconded by Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Dilks, would you mind just clarifying, and Councillor Wheeler?
Yes, thank you, Shaheen. I lost contact just as Councillor Reid was speaking. Come back now, but I tried to put those original questions I was referring to in the chat box. I'm not sure I was successful. I tried to put the amendment in the chat box. Have you got that, Shaheen, or is?
No, nothing's come through. So
to read I'll attempt to read it. Given the U-turn announced by the portfolio holder, that the budget requirement for up to £100,000 set by the leader in Cabinet in December and confirmed in January to underwrite the unveiling of the statue of the late Baroness Thatcher is to be removed from the Council's spending plans for the coming year, is the way I had put it. I propose that this budget requirement of £100,000 be allocated instead to underwrite food banks and other appropriate charitable and/or voluntary initiatives providing assistance to those South Kesteven residents who are struggling to put food on the table during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dilks. So I wasn't clear whether there was a seconder to that proposal.
Yes, there was, Shaheen. It's Councillor Wheeler. I'm happy to second it.
I'm very grateful. In that case, then, apologies to Councillor Reid. We should have clarified that because there has been an amendment and a seconder, we will now move to debate that amendment. And can I ask to ensure that the right bits are debated at the right time? We are only now debating that specific amendment, the removal of the £100,000 that's in the reserve to be allocated elsewhere to underwrite and support food banks and other charities. So that is the amendment that we are currently speaking to, and apologies to Councillor Reid, who I think was speaking to the substantive motion.
Could I call on Councillor Sue Woolley, please?
I think there was a speaker before that, Madam Chairman. Councillor Judy Stevens was in the chat box first.
I've got it down.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, yes. I was just going to say that I've been really pleased to be able to spend my ward councillor's grant on supporting the DB. I set up the Deeping Business.
It's your local priority reserve can be used for, it's not capital, it's revenue. Local priority reserve can be used for revenue.
I was very fortunate that I was able to use some of my my ward councillor's grant to support the Deeping Business Support Group, which obviously has been helping businesses in need in the Deepings. I've also been working quite closely with the food bank because, as the councillor rightly says, there are a number of people within the Deepings that are struggling to put food on the table. But I'm really pleased to report that our food bank is really well stocked. It's well stocked by the Tesco's and other supermarkets, and I know that other generous individuals are also giving to our Feed Deeping campaign. So, and of course, I don't know whether the councillor has already spent his ward councillor's grant, but if he hasn't, then that would be a jolly good way, if he feels that that is needed, to where to put it. But actually, I feel that this is already being supported. I believe, maybe Councillor Stokes can help me on this, but I believe we do support the food banks via government grant through South Kesteven. But yes, certainly, I think they're fortunately very well stocked at the moment, and I have been in there and seen them. Thank you.
Councillor Adam Stokes to give a reply to that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'm a bit surprised, because if Councillor Dilks had read the budget, he would know that we are supporting the food banks within the budget already. I know that a lot of councillors are given, as Councillor Stevens has mentioned, council ward member grants. I gave some of my Lincolnshire County Council COVID member grant scheme to the Grantham Food Bank, and Brian does a fantastic job down there. So I would say that through various different allocations, the district council and councillors are supporting their local food banks, and so I can't support this amendment in its present guise. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Sue Woolley?
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to reinforce a couple of the points that have already been made around the provision of supplies to food banks and indeed all the other community groups. As you're probably aware, throughout Lincolnshire, there's been about over 300 different community and voluntary groups setting up small individual food banks. An enormous amount of funding has been given by the local communities themselves. We are so lucky to live in such a generous society, but on top of that, the government have been giving a series of grants which have been dispersed first and foremost through the county council and then cascaded out to district council areas. And so, for example, one of those grants is the DEFRA grant, which was just under £900,000, and it was specifically for food type of the items. So the Community Foundation in Lincolnshire is looking after part of that. The food banks have all clubbed together and they are using another part of that, and indeed the co-op, its food company, are then supplying goods, food goods particularly, to residents who are clinically extremely vulnerable. And on the back of the clinically extremely vulnerable group of residents, on a monthly basis, there is a funding stream coming down from government specifically to look after those individuals around their welfare and indeed food. I am very comfortable that in this district and indeed in this county, we are getting an enormous amount of help which is being given out very, very quickly. So I will not be supporting Councillor Dilks's suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Could I just confirm that Councillor Matthew Lee has withdrawn making comment? Right. Could I ask Councillor Callum Cook to speak, please?
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. And in relation to this, well, firstly, no element of the £100,000 has been spent. But as a council, we work incredibly closely with our food banks. In fact, I think I've probably visited I've certainly been in touch with every food bank, but I've certainly visited nearly all of them, and I've also contributed some of my own local ward member budget to the community bank, and they do an incredible amount of work across the entire district. Obviously, we've continued with our funding mechanisms around the South Kesteven Community Fund and also the ward member grants for individual members. We've also, as Councillor Stokes has already alluded to, we've got an allocation of funding within this budget. And all I'd say to any group, community group or food bank is if they are in need or need support, then please do get in touch. The door is open. And I know that Councillor Mason, who has been leading our community hub, is almost in daily contact, if not weekly contact, with a lot of these organisations to check in on them, to make sure that they're doing okay. And if there is any support that we can provide, then we are there to do that. And if anybody is in need as an individual, they can also contact the community hub and we can put them in touch with the right people for support. So thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and I will not be supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I'm curious actually to understand how you actually underwrite a food bank in many respects. And underwriting is, if you like, a bit of an insurance policy, and it's there to cover something if you don't quite manage to achieve what you'd hoped. And with food banks, I mean, they distribute what comes in and what goes out. So there's nothing really there to underwrite. There'd be option for donation, which I know that people do with ward member grants, but I'm not entirely sure that an underwriting of any organisation like that would actually mean anything. You know, it's kind of just an excuse to make something up, really. And that's been the trouble throughout this, that people misunderstanding what an underwriting is. But anyway, I'm with the leader on this, in that there's an awful lot that we already do with regards to supporting our food banks, and there's an awful lot that our members do already with their ward member grants and privately with respect to the local charities. So again, I'm not supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bob Broughton.
Thank you, Chairman Breeder. Oh, and happy birthday too.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm chairman of the Feth East charity in Market Deeping, and we support local schools and students. And as a one-off, if that makes sense, as a one-off on 2 occasions when we had our last meeting, we offered our local food bank £500, and we were politely turned down because I think they all got a £3,000 grant when they went into the lockdown last March, and they were awash with not only food but money. So both our offers of £500 were politely declined. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Gary Smith to join us?
Thank you, Chairman. It was just in response to the questions and queries that Councillor Dilks raised in regards to the Freedom of Information request that he and other councillors have submitted on the statute. I just wanted to reassure members that we are still within the timescales for that. A draft has been prepared. I've just followed up, and I understand it will be coming out. I was expecting it to come out during the day, but if it hasn't come out, it's shortly going to be coming out in the next hour or two. So I can assure members that a response has been prepared, and it will be with those members who've requested that information shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harish Bisnar Singh.
Sorry. Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wondered if Councillor Dilks met the food bank as an example for charities, because we've got many other charities. I think charities, but in general, what actually wanted this money to go, because we've got a number of charities. For example, in Stamford, we got SOS Save Our Stamford, which have been very involved during the COVID. I think they need funding, but okay, members fund have gone to them. I just wonder if there are generally like the part of money, this money put in there to help other charities coming up, so like a British Heart Foundation, that is finding it difficult currently at the moment, it's age concerns and the others. That's what I wanted to say, Madam Chairman. I just thought probably some money to put aside as opposed to just burn it on one event.
Thank you. Councillor Annie Mason.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think I'm having difficulties getting my camera on, so apologies for that. Oh, here I am. So I just want to echo Councillor Cook's comments, really. Our Community Engagement Officer, Carol Drury, Ken Lyon and myself are in constant contact with groups and charities and organisations around the district, putting these groups and organisations in touch with relevant funding streams that is available. And Councillor Woolley has already said there's extra funding available for charities and organisations that supply food, so I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Judy Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, as a trustee of the Butterfield Centre in Bourne, I would like to say how very much the trustees of and all the volunteers that we have who come in to help every day have appreciated the support we've had from the District Council and from the local members who have given very good donations. It is all very much appreciated, and we thank everybody and members of the district for thinking of us and being so generous. Thank you.
Councillor Mark Whittington.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My apologies for putting on my camera. My internet's a bit dodgy, and sometimes when I turn cameras on, things tend to fall apart a bit. I'm just looking at the actual wording of Councillor Dilk's amendment, and he talks about a budget requirement of up to £100,000 in regards to the underwriting of the Baroness Thatcher statue. Now, obviously, if a figure of up to £100,000 can be one or £100,000, but as we now know, it's going to be nil. So we've got a commitment there that potentially that we now know is going to be nil, but all of a sudden has turned into a budget requirement of £100,000 for food banks. I'm afraid, Madam Chairman, the actual amendment doesn't make sense, because there is no £100,000 to be allocated to food banks. It's as simple and straightforward as that. The wording of the amendment it isn't clear at all. So on that basis, I'm afraid I cannot support it. Thank you.
That's it. That's it. Shaheen. Yeah. So, Councillor Dilks, do you want to have the right of reply?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I haven't spoken on the on my amendment at this stage, but thank you. I welcome the comments. Just sort of dealing with the main ones, if I may. Quite interesting that, you know, I get accused of making it up as what was it? An excuse to make something up. Well, I've got to say, spending £100,000 on a statue party was interesting, and of course, you know, I would just say, how many £1,000s of that money was going to be spent on refreshments? People may think that everybody is looked after in this pandemic, and I welcome all the initiatives that have taken place and what individuals have been doing to help, and the groups. It may well be that the food banks are okay just at the moment, but if you read the amendment, and yes, it was done in response to it was done quickly in response to Councillor Stokes's on the hoof change. So I was forced to sort of do it quickly. But if you read it, it's not just about food banks. It says, I think it says, hopefully, the money is allocated to appropriate charitable and voluntary organisations that are helping people who are putting food on the table where people are struggling to do that. And if anybody thinks that there's nobody in South Kesterburn who is struggling to put food on the table during this pandemic, I've got to say they're not on this planet. Thank you.
Thank you.
On regards, is there £100,000 sloshing around? Well, clearly somebody thought that there was up to £100,000 sloshing around that could be spent on a statue party. What I'm saying is I think it would be far better spent on something that people actually need. And as I say, there was thousands of pounds was allocated for, I believe, refreshments and mementos for VIPs to take away. I didn't think that was a good use. I've got nothing against a statue of Margaret Thatcher in Grantham. I recognise she was the first female Prime Minister and that she came from Grantham. But as I've always said, it should not involve public money, and it should be behind a big fence to stop it being vandalised. Thank you, Gary Smith, for your answers. That's the first time I've had any sort of response in a month to the questions I asked a month ago. You're right that it is still within the time limit. There's now less than 24 hours to the time limit for the council to respond to my freedom of information questions under the legislation. But that's the kind of nonsense that I expect from this council, I've got to say. Madam Chairman, thank you very much indeed. I do hope people will support. If we can, on a whim, allocate £100,000 to a party for a statue, I think, to feed VIPs coming from wherever they're coming from, I think we can afford to spend £100,000 on people who are struggling to put food on the table, however we do it. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Now
I hope there'll be a recorded vote. Thank you.
I think we now need to go to a vote. Shaheen, could you read out what we're voting on? Oh, sorry. Could I ask the Chief Executive to read out what we're voting on, please?
Madam Chairman, we've had a proposed amendment to the budget which was proposed by Councillor Dilks and seconded by Councillor Wheeler. However, Councillor, in his right of reply at the end of the day, Councillor Dilks has already also sought a recorded vote on this amendment. And as members are aware, there's a requirement, if I can remember, it's 10 people would be needed. So as I'm seeing in the chat function, if members wish to take a recorded vote, then I will need to take that as the first thing that we vote on. At the moment, I can only see 4 people are supporting a recorded vote. If there's any further member that requests that supports a recorded vote, we've got 7 people at the present time for a recorded vote. Therefore, if there's no further people seeking a recorded vote, then that actually falls as a requirement. Therefore, we come back to the proposed amendment to the budget, which was actually posted in the chat function, so which was proposed by Councillor Dill, seconded by Councillor Wheeler, to use the money that was coming from the local priority reserve to fund a number of charities, voluntary sector requirements and the food bank. So therefore, if we can do this through just to confirm, Madam Chairman, so therefore, can members vote by exception in the chat box? If you are for the amendment, you don't need to, but if you're against or abstentions, please vote in the chat function, please. Madam Chairman, if I can confirm, the voting has been completed in the chat function and that proposal has fallen.
All right, so now do I go back to...
Madam Chairman, we are therefore now, with that amendment having fallen, back to the substantive motion as proposed by Councillor Adam Stokes and seconded by Councillor Kellam Cook.
Is it the what? Sorry. Could I have Dr. Peter Mosley speak, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Yeah, now that we're back talking to the substantive, I'm delighted to support the budget that we've got in front of us today. I think Adam and his team have done an exceptional job in really challenging circumstances, and I know that as a cabinet we've all worked together to try and balance this. I'm really pleased about some of the things within there. So the big clean, for example, is once again featured within the budget, and of course this is something that every single aspect of every single resident in the district benefits from, and they're so highly thought of and spoken of. And they bring smiles to people's faces, especially at times when you can't get out. So I'm really pleased that that's in there. Also, you know, the pay uplift for our loaders who are providing such a valuable service throughout the challenging time that we're having, and being able to continue that is of course of great pride and satisfaction to me. There have been difficult choices to make. You know, we've had to make a few concessions with regards to car parking fees, and of course that moves forward. But we are committed to providing, you know, good services for our residents in respect of that. But I just wanted to speak in support of the budget as it moves forward, and thank the team for doing such an excellent job. Thank you.
Oh. Could I ask Councillor Paul Wood, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I think, as we all know, this last year has been exceptionally difficult, and I'm sure it's been exceptionally difficult also to formulate and put together a budget. I think this is probably my 18th budget as a councillor, and they've all been fun. This is.
Thank you.
I think really the budget is a good budget. We've got this £5 increase, which is, I know, the maximum we can go, but that's quite acceptable. I think that's a good increase and fair amount. There was two particular things in the budget that I was particularly concerned about. And when you're looking at the budget of this, you know, millions of pounds, there's always things you can pick on, and we could spend days and days and days going through it. I don't intend to do that. There was two particular items that I was concerned about, and both of those items have been addressed. One of them is the £100,000, which for the statue, which I must admit I thought was ridiculous. I don't mind the statue, nothing wrong with putting the statue up at all, but to spend 100,000, so I'm exceptionally pleased that that's going to be taken out. The second item was on the pay and the real living wage. Now, I must admit, I was a little bit confused at Employment Committee between the guaranteed minimum pay, the national living wage, and then, and I thought the living wage was the real living wage. Well, I must admit, it was only when Councillor Louise Clack pointed it out to me, and I think proposals were exceptionally good. And again, I'm pleased that Councillor Stokes and Leader of the Council, Councillor Kellam Cook, has taken those things on board. I think that's the right thing to do for everybody. So those are my two major issues. Those have both been addressed. So now I have no problem supporting the budget. I think it's a good budget. Councillor Peter Mosley has made the point about the big clean. Exceptionally well received. The big clean is exceptionally welcomed in all areas. Particularly, I represent rural areas. That's welcome there, and very pleased to receive that. So I would encourage, I don't suppose everybody will, everybody to vote for it and support the budget. There will always be things in it that you could pick on, and Nick can pick on. There is things that I could do, but I think that's not the point. It's generally a very good budget, and I approve it. So thank you, Madam Chairman. I would encourage everybody to please vote for it and approve it.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Steptoe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to leave my camera off if that's okay. I'm having one or two connectivity issues. I'm going to disappoint Councillor Wood. I don't think he'll be too surprised there. Well, we certainly live in very interesting times. A series of last-minute U-turns and flip-flops, quite frankly, from the administration. I congratulate Councillor Clack for her immense hard work on getting her amendment through. I absolutely endorse 100% of what Councillor Dilks has said on as regards his failed amendment. The background to this SK budget is, of course, the pandemic and local authorities up and down the country having to rely on quite often inadequate grants from the central government. And that, of course, leads to a cocktail of cuts, council tax rises, and a public sector wage freeze for most. Stating the obvious, the budget projections for future years make it obvious that we will have to rely on council tax rises to stay afloat. It's also interesting, and I remember commenting on this time last year, that once again the administration's flagship policy of not so long ago, I do of course refer to Invest SK, is having its funding slashed by over half. Now it's pretty obvious a quick walk down any high street, whether that be Grantham, Bourne, Stamford, wherever, informs us that this isn't due to the flourishing local businesses for pretty obvious reasons. In this morning's briefing, it was this cut's been dressed up as streamlining, restructuring, refocusing. Well, quite simply, with the greatest of respect, they're all euphemisms for payoffs and cuts. I'm most concerned about the 50% cut to the ward allowances. Grantham in particular has pockets of severe relative poverty, as no doubt do other local villages and towns. But it's two estates in Grantham where this is particularly the case. And of course I represent one of them. And I absolutely agree with Councillor Dilks. I simply don't recognise the complacency on show this afternoon from various Tory councillors. And I'd invite them to have a walk in better times, post-COVID times, to have a walk round the ward that I and Councillor Clack represent and really see if they think there is no need for increased food bank funding. The £1,000 ward grant up until that's about to be cut to 500 does absolutely sterling work in supporting the disadvantaged. This year mine went to the incredible local charity Inspire Plus, who have done so much good work on the Earlsfield estate with their Move and Food project, which feeds disadvantaged kids whilst also keeping them active, both very important. We're pleased, obviously, that the administration has clearly U-turned on its original proposals to cut the Grantham Carnival grant of £6,000. This is clearly following the kickback that they've received from the local community. I know I've had email after email about it. One resident actually asked me if the local Conservatives plan to actually conserve anything anymore. A good question, so I totally welcome that flip-flop there. We now want the administration to go further. We'd like a commitment from them to fund this important part of Grantham's cultural history every year. But of course, it's the last minute, the literally last minute U-turn on the underwriting of the Thatcher statue that we welcome the most. It's 30 seconds. It's clearly down to panic. It really does show that public pressure really does work, as many residents across the political divide agree with Labour that this was actually a perverse sense of priorities during a pandemic. So these U-turns show a flip-flopping administration that retreats under pressure. And whilst welcoming several aspects of this budget, I cannot support it as a package. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, could I have Councillor Exton, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's a word of thanks to Councillor Stokes regarding the points that members of Stamford took point regarding the car park charges. It's a small amount, half amount of what we would have liked, but it's a way forward to help to promote Stamford in these hard times. Thank you to Adam Stokes and all the officers concerned.
Okay, thank you. Am I muted? Could I ask Councillor Baxter, please?
Thank you, Chair. I've only got 5 minutes and I've got a lot to get through. So I totally welcome the U-turn on the Margaret Thatcher underwriting, not least because of a delicious irony that the Conservative Council has U-turned over an issue of the statue of the lady who said, "U-turn if you want to, the lady's not for turning." Absolutely brilliant. I also welcome the special expense areas, the abolition of the unjust and anachronistic tax on Deeping's residents, which was the Deeping special expense area. And I'm grateful to Councillor Stokes and all his colleagues for getting rid of that at last. Can I ask, the ward member budget for this year, if any part of it hasn't been spent, could that be rolled over to next year so that those of us who do wish to spend the money can be given the opportunity to spend a little bit more in our areas if other councillors don't need it? Can I also ask if the budget for the all-weather pitch, the all-weather Deeping's Leisure Centre pitch, has been rolled over? I don't quite understand how these things work, but I know that the money for the statue underwriting was going to be rolled over, so hopefully the ward member budget and the all-weather pitch can be rolled over too. The Invest SK budget on table 5 on page 38, can I ask how much of the Invest SK budget now is for anything other than staffing? I know that there are some expensive staff within the organisation, and so of the £370,000, how much of it, Councillor Stokes, is not for staffing? In paragraph 5.6 on page 42, we talk about house building. Councillor Reid mentioned that we are losing about 50 per year, or 56 houses last year were RTB'd, we lost to right to buy. And tomorrow the Cabinet is going hopefully to approve the building of 12 new houses. I'm grateful to Councillor Reid for finally announcing where some of the houses are going to go, and I hope that we'll have that in writing sometime soon, because I've been asking for it since the middle of last year. But it leaves us with 36 months to spend £40 million and produce 400 houses. That's more than 10 houses a month, and we haven't even put in planning permission for any of them yet. So I wonder if that's really realistic, and that is what paragraph 5.6 appears to say, that the new build programme further details and a detailed appraisal will arrive later, which I think means that there'll be some backpedalling, but I mean, any is better than none. In table 3 on page 36, I just want to say that the parking income projections are, I mean, they're welcome, but they're complete pie in the sky, not because of the COVID pandemic, but also with the daft contract that we're in, and for who knows how long, where you can't even pay contactlessly other than by using your ringing somebody up. That situation is anachronistic now, and we must be one of the only local authorities in the country that are still expecting people to get out 35 pence of change. Item the next comment I wanted to make was about the impact of a decarbonisation budget. We had already budgeted for some of the measures that we're now being given a grant from national government. So we're getting the £950,000 of government grant for measures such as LED lighting and so on. Surely that means that there's less to spend from this forthcoming year, because we're not going to be doing that from the investor save budget or the revenue budgets anymore. So what is the impact on that, and is it written into the paperwork? There are a couple of big ticket items that are missed completely. One I can't mention, but I can mention that there doesn't seem to be anything in about the leisure investment or leisure transformation programme. If we are going to build, and I certainly hope we are going to build a new leisure centre in the Deepings, when will we see a
30 seconds
a mention in the capital programme of that investment? How many staff or apprentices are on less than £7 an hour? I know that we have about 12 apprentices, but according to one piece of paper, I think the next item, some of them are on £4.55 an hour. That's disgusting if it's the case. Finally, I'd like to propose an amendment, and the amendment is about the cost of community rooms. It is
Councillor Baxter, you come to your 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if I can just finish my amendment, and that is to withdraw the 3% increase and put that back to zero.
It's 5 minutes. Everybody is having the 5 minutes. I'm sorry, we're not going over just at this moment. Thank you. Are you muted? No. Could I have Councillor Bisnell Singh, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will, if you excuse me, I will not turn my video on because it tends to log me off. I generally thoroughly welcome the budget, and also, the statement made by the leader, Councillor Callum Cook. I'll come to that. I'll just refer first of all to the housing revenue account. It is shown that as an indicative increase of approximately £500,000 between the 2020-21 current budget and 2020-21 indicative budgets. I wonder, will that be sufficient to fund the allocated, the sum allocated to bring the voids into use and other housing repairs to be carried out, and to bring out the housing stock generally to a decent home standard? I would very much welcome if probably more can be allocated to bring this, because we've got quite a lot of people that are on our waiting list. And secondly, I would like to come to thanks Councillor Callum Cook with regard to announcement of the extra 100 places in car parking, probably in cattle market. But this has to go hand in hand with the street parking in Stamford. We have got problems in the street parking where people are parking their car, for example, like Yeoman Bank, Queen Street, Empingham Road, Conduit Road, Recreation Ground, Ratcliffe Road, Exeter, many of them. That's really causing problem for the residents. Now, we must, with this proposal, give incentive to the people that's working in town, but when they come to work, they park the car in the streets because they don't go into the car park, so that they can make use of the 100 places and probably create more places so that we can leave our street free. That causes great congestions. Sometimes the road are blocked. We need to have extra parking spaces because most of our main entrance street from the major roads are parked with cars that is only there during the daytime, what people are marking in town. But generally, I welcome the budget and I'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Annie Mason to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is an excellent budget. Councillor Stokes and his team has done an incredible job. Let's be clear, there's been no U-turn. The decision we made then was the right one. The decision we've made now is the right one. What we're showing is that we can adapt to changing circumstances. The most important thing within this budget is we have made no cuts or reductions to frontline services and I'm astounded that some councillors are struggling to see the positives in this budget. I'm very supportive of this budget and want to say thank you to Councillor Stokes and his team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I ask Councillor Knowles to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I welcome the budget as a package in difficult circumstances and with so many unknowns for next year as well as for that have been occurred this year. It's been very difficult to do a budget, and I do welcome the two changes. I'll not use an emotive term. The changes that have been brought about in the last week or two, because I think they are sensible and justified changes. Two areas I wanted to just mention very briefly, and I note that the special expense area for deeping has been removed, and I hope that starts a process. Can't think of the word. It's a precedent for a process there that will looking at removing the special expense area also for Bourne. It was brought up at finance scrutiny 6-9 months ago now, and was thought to be on the go, and had a general view that people were sympathetic to the idea that we look very carefully at special expense areas in Bourne and other places. But it seems to have dropped off the agenda, and I'm sure Councillor Gill will be happy to bring it back to the agenda as quickly as possible, so that we don't get to next September and we're still talking about it and wondering whether to put it in the budget or not. So I hope that we can really get to grips with special expense areas very, very quickly during the course of the year. The second thing I'd like to congratulate the budget on is its emphasis on cleaning and on Peter Mosley and his efforts with deep cleaning and so on and so forth. And I do note that there is sufficient space within that budget to meet the commitment that was made
It appears Councillor Knowles has experienced technical difficulties because he's left the meeting. We'll try and get him back in, Madam Chairman.
I'll go on to the next one then. So could I ask Shaheen to come in, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You will have seen in the chat box that just before Councillor Baxter's time was up, he had proposed an amendment, and that is to increase the funding to the community rooms by 3%. That has now been seconded by Councillor Steptoe, and so if we can move the debate, please, to that amendment, if there are any speakers on that amendment.
Could I ask the Chief Executive, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I think it was just to confirm what Shaheen was proposing there. It's to withdraw the increase of the cost of the community rooms by 3%. It wasn't to increase them by 3%. It was to, as recommendation 12 in the report, is to approve an average increase of 3% in the HRA service charges for communal facilities and communal rooms. And I think that is what Councillor Baxter was proposing, is an amendment to recommendation 12, which has been seconded by Councillor Steptoe. Therefore, if it's proposed and seconded, then we move into a debate on that amendment, please. And I know Councillor Whittington is in the chat box, but I don't think that Councillor Whittington, probably assuming wrongly here, if he could confirm that he's not speaking on the amendment at this stage.
Thanks, Chief Executive. Yes, I was about to speak on the substantive motion, but in view of the fact that Councillor Baxter's proposed amendment has now been seconded, I want to speak on the proposed amendment as well. Thank you. Just to clarify, Chief Executive, thank you.
All right, okay. So could I have Mark Whittington speak then, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is receiving these amendments on the go, as it were, which just seem to be seemingly made up and the figures plucked out of the air without any proper costing of their implication, or there's no indication as to where this £3,000 is going to be financed from, and therefore we will in effect be setting a budget that is unbalanced, which is illegal. So therefore I would encourage all members to vote against this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Oh, done it. Could I ask Councillor Lee Steptoe, please?
I reserve my right to speak, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ashley Baxter. No, sorry. Speak on the amendment. Right, it's Councillor Robert Reid. Not reading it properly, am I?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I hear the amendment. I sincerely don't support the amendment, and my reasons for not doing so is I am communicated with and asked countless times by people of our sheltered accommodations for when these community rooms can be reused. And there is a rebate that has been given on the time that they are shut for the community apportionment of it. So therefore, I don't see why we should be looking to not go forward with the 3% that's included in the budget. So just to clarify, that is that a repayment has been given and continues to be given on the community apportionment of rooms to tenants, and that the 3% increase is to do with refurbishment, compliance, and our programme to look after community rooms, and in particular the people at Barkston that really want their post office amenity opening as soon as I humanly can. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So now I go to Councillor Lee Steptoe.
Yeah, obviously I'm seconding Councillor Baxter's amendment. I would just make the observation that some of the most vulnerable people in our community live in council accommodation. I don't think that's a controversial comment in any way. It's not meaning to be controversial. It is largely speaking the poorest, most disadvantaged members of our society that live in council and social housing, and they need all the help that they can get at the moment. They don't need increases of any kind. We have £13 million of reserves. I'm not a member of the Labour Party, believe it or not, that literally thinks there is some kind of magic money tree. You know, I'm grown up and mature enough to know that there isn't. And of course, I'm quoting previous Prime Minister Theresa May there. Okay, but once again, I question some of the administration's priorities. And from that point of view, I fully support Councillor Baxter's amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that's right. Could I have Councillor Philip Knowles, please? Oh, right. Is it? Right, okay. I've been just given advice that I should go straight on to the vote. So that's...
Do I not get a chance to respond?
Does he respond? Yes. Yes. You may respond.
Oh, thank you very much. This is on page 49 for anyone that's not been following, and it's the rooms that are attached to places like the Riverside Complex. I think that with all that has been done to the people in places like Riverside over the last few years, it's not very much to ask that we keep the costs of community rooms and guest rooms down, especially in these troubled times. As for balancing the budget, I don't know what the exact cost will be to the council. I imagine it's an extremely modest cost, and it could be met by the impact of decarbonisation funding that we've just agreed from government.
There's a point. I'm sorry, Councillor Reid has just brought up a point of information.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to point out that nearly 70% of our sheltered housing tenants are covered by benefits, so they would be refunding the government. Thank you.
So, may I continue?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So the other 30% are not. And I think that we have an obligation to look after these who are, as Councillor Steptoe said, among the most vulnerable. It's not going to cost us very much at all, and if there is a cost, whatever cost is involved, I'm sure could be found from within the budgets, particularly the budget that was already allocated to do such things as LED lights and such like that is now being paid for by the funding elsewhere. Not that I would ever want to take money away from the climate change budget, but if those things are already funded, then that does leave some wriggle room. And let's face it, there's been a lot of wriggle room in the rest of the budget. So I'd ask members to support me and feel free to go to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to the vote then, please. Could I ask Shaheen to repeat what we're voting on, please?
Yes, Madam Chairman, you're voting on the amendment proposed by Councillor Baxter and seconded by Councillor Steptoe, and that is to withdraw the proposed increase in the cost of the community rooms by 3%.
Okay, and are we going to do it without recording? Yes.
Madam Chairman, yes, there is no need for a recorded vote because it's on the HRA. Therefore, you can vote by exception, voting by exception into the chat function. Therefore, please, if you are against the proposal set by Councillor Baxter and seconded by Councillor Steptoe, then you need to put against or abstain in the chat function. This refers to recommendation 12 in the budget report on page 32. Madam Chairman, I think the majority of the council has now voted. As you can see, the vote has fallen. Therefore, the amendment to recommendation 12 is not supported by council. So therefore, you're back to substantive motion of council.
No. Right, okay, thank you very much indeed. Now we go back to the substantive motion. Adam, would you like to just say, Councillor Stokes?
Madam Chairman?
No. Yes. Oh, sorry.
I believe I was passed
Sorry,
over.
you have been left so long in the chat room, I have lost you. Okay, so Councillor Whittington.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to pay a lot of tribute to Councillor Stokes and to the finance team for the preparation of such a sound, robust budget in these very difficult financial times, which has been mentioned previously by a number of people. And actually, it's also to draw Council's attention to the very robust scrutiny that this budget has actually had. It has been, it's been to scrutiny committees, it's been to the budget overview scrutiny committee, it's been out of public consultation. There's been 5 months time spent on this budget so far. So I'm a little surprised when we actually get these last minute motions from councillors when these proposals have actually been in well known to them for many months, and they could have come forward at any time with these amendments. So I want to compare those with the very excellent amendments that Councillor Clack has proposed, because if you look at that, it's a very well worded amendment. It's very positively worded. It's evidenced. It's support. It's referenced. It's one of the best amendments to a motion I think I've ever seen in all my time as a councillor. And I want to pay particular, give particular all due respect to Councillor Clack. It's an excellent amendment, and that is the way that amendments to the budget should be made. Properly costed, the source of finance for them identified, and not something, Madam Chairman, that's cobbled together at the last few moments in order to score a few political points. I won't go on and say anything else, because I'm going to be very happy to support this budget with the amendment, and I would the budget that includes the council amendment. I will urge all members to support it. Thank you.
Could I just ask Councillor Phil Dilks, please?
Yeah, the point of information, Madam Chairman, thank you. Just on what Councillor Whittington just said, I was not able to, I do have great sympathy with what he said, and wouldn't it be nice if we were able to put our amendments in and discuss these things beforehand? But let's, you know, the people have been playing smoke and mirrors with this budget and making political points and bringing, you know, Councillor Stokes announced this afternoon. He could have told us that before. He chose not to. So please don't complain in the Conservative Party when amendments are put in last minute. You know, two can play at that game, and you are doing. And it could be much better for the whole council had you actually informed all members that was going to happen, that U-turn was going to happen, rather than actually answer any questions.
Right, thank you. Councillor, I thought it was Lee Steptoe again. Councillor, oh sorry, not Councillor, it's Officer Richard Wiles, please.
Madam Chairman, if I may just say, Councillor Knowles has just come back. He didn't quite get to finish his comments when his connection failed. So.
Okay, so sorry. Can we have Councillor Knowles, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know exactly when I lost you. I think I'd mentioned the special expense areas. Is that correct? And I was making a brief comment at the end about my welcoming the emphasis on cleaning and deep cleaning within the community, and just commenting that there may be some space there for the council to fulfil a commitment that it made to Bournemouth Council some years ago. And I was just saying that the negotiations or discussions are ongoing about that and are about to take place, I think, in 11 days' time. So that was all I was going to finish. Thanks very much indeed, Chair.
Thank you very much. Could we go to Richard, please? Richard Wiles.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It was just to pick up a few questions that have been asked during the debate from various members. Obviously, some were comments only, but there were some specific questions. In respect of Invest SK funding proposals for next year, 370,000, approximately 86% is staff specific, staff related expenditure. In terms of ward members, of course, the budget proposals is to restate the £500 per ward member, which was agreed in 1920. Members will recall as a one-off for 2021, the leader took a decision in the COVID emergency powers phase to increase that to £1,000 per ward member as a one-off, so it has reverted back to the £500 that it was previously. In terms of any slippage at the outturn, of course, members will be aware we're currently in a deficit position for the general fund, and that's been reported constantly throughout the year to members. So it's probably a very unlikely situation where there will be sufficient budget available to roll into next year, due to the fact that the overall position is continued to show a deficit for the council. In respect to the HRA new build, I think Councillor Reid discussed and mentioned the review of the new build programme as part of his supporting comments to the proposals that have been put forward this afternoon. In terms of car parking, the modelling that's been undertaken to build in the budgets for next year have a underlying assumption not only on the tariff proposed increases, but also based on modelling of usage throughout the car parks pre-COVID period. So taking 18, 19, 19, 20 user information and using those as the base for car parking projections post-COVID and full social restrictions being lifted. So there clearly is some level of assurance built into the proposals. In respect to the SEAs, the removal of the deepens SEA is purely and simply because the costs that were being charged to SEA are no longer chargeable. Those costs have now been transferred over to Leisure SK, so there is no need for the SEA to continue, as no costs are now being charged to it. In respect of all the other special expense areas, it has been agreed at the Finance Committee to be on the work plan for the committee, and it's on that work plan for the following year, so nothing has been forgotten in terms of that review. Of course, members will be aware that all the SEAs have costs charged to them that in other parts of the district, that's a charge that's been picked up by either a parish or a town council. So clearly, and members will appreciate, it's not as simple as just switching those SEAs off. There are costs being charged to those SEAs, so there will need to be careful debate and consideration of where those costs will be reverted to or ceased in the future. Hopefully that deals with some of the questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I go now to Councillor Adam Stokes to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, where to start on some of them comments? Smoke and mirrors. This budget has probably been one of the most open budgets for 21-22 that we've ever had. We've had meeting after meeting after meeting. You're also aware that we take the 2021 has been going to FEDCO throughout the year. So we're hardly hiding anything, Councillor Dilks. And with regards to amendments, it would have been nice. I mean, as I said to Councillor Clack, my door is open for anyone to have a chat with me with regards to amendments. Councillor Clack brought forward an amendment. We've discussed it, and we've brought it as part of the budget. You've mentioned the statue as well. This is not a U-turn. It's not going to be held in May, so we've got a longer period to fundraise. So we're no longer now going to underwrite it. It's a simple equation, a very, very simple equation. Richard has mentioned with regards to the rollover of the ward member grant scheme. And all I would say is that it proves that we are a listing cabinet. And we are a listening cabinet, and we do listen. I mean, as I said, my door is always open, and I will have any discussions with regards to budgets or any amendments in future budgets. But if people can't be bothered to do that or don't want to do that, then fine. Councillor Louise Clack did, and we had that included in the budget. So as I say, my door's always open, and if you want a conversation, pick up the phone, email me, and let me know. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to propose we go to the vote now, Chairman. Thank you.
So now we need to vote. Could I ask the Chief Exec how we're voting? Or should I ask you what we're voting on?
I don't mind. Thank you, Chairman. I can't say how to vote, but I can put the proposal forward. We are actually voting on recommendations 1 to 9 of the budget, which is the substantive budget on page 31 and 32, plus Appendix H, A to G. So that it requires a recorded vote, which Naomi, it's been proposed by Councillor Adam Stokes and seconded by Councillor Callum Cook, Leader of the Council. So that is the proposal with the amendment, of course, that came forward from Councillor Clack to support the real living wage that's been included in the budget. So to confirm, 1 to 9 recommendations, Appendix H, A to G, with the amendment from Councillor Clack. Therefore, because that section needs to be a recorded vote, I will ask Naomi now to go to the recorded vote as per the Constitution, and if you can say for, against or abstain, members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I'll now go to the recorded vote. Councillors, can I please also take this opportunity to remind you to refrain from putting comments in the chat box unless they are related to requesting to speak or requesting technical assistance. Thank you. So I'll start with the recorded vote. Councillor Bob Adams?
For.
Councillor Ashley Baxter?
Abstain.
Councillor David Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Harish Bisnath Singh?
For.
Councillor Mrs Pam Bosworth?
For.
Councillor Bob Broughton?
For.
Councillor George Chivers?
For.
Councillor Louise Clack?
For.
Councillor Callum Cook?
For.
Councillor John Cottier.
4.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
4.
Councillor John Dawson.
4.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
Abstain. Please record my abstention.
I have done so, thank you. Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Councillor Mike Exton.
4.
Councillor Paul Fellows.
4.
Councillor Helen Gorrell.
4.
Councillor Breda Griffin.
4.
Councillor Jan Hansen.
Abstain.
Councillor Graham Gill.
4.
Councillor Gloria Johnson.
4.
Councillor Mrs Rosemary Cabery Brown.
4.
Councillor Jane Kingman.
4.
Councillor Philip Knowles.
4.
Councillor Matthew Lee.
4.
Councillor Nikki Manterfield.
4.
Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
4.
Councillor Virginia Moran.
4.
Councillor Dr Peter Mosley.
4.
Councillor Robert Reid.
4.
Councillor Susan Sandal.
4.
Councillor Ian Selby.
Warmest congratulations to the administration and Councillor Clack. 4.
Councillor Mrs Jackie Smith.
4.
Councillor Mrs Judy Smith.
4.
Councillor Lee Steptoe.
Abstain.
Councillor Judy Stevens.
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
4.
Councillor Ian Stokes.
4.
Councillor Jill Thomas.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope Bellew.
4.
Councillor Sarah Trotter.
4.
Councillor Dean Ward.
4.
Councillor Hannah Westrop.
4.
Councillor Hilary Westrop.
4.
Councillor Amanda Wheeler.
4.
Councillor Mark Whittington.
4.
Councillor Jane Wood.
4.
Councillor Paul Wood.
4.
Councillor Sue Woolley.
4.
Councillor Linda Wootton.
4.
And Councillor Ray Wootton.
4.
Thank you. So, Madam Chairman, we've had 4 abstentions and there are 52 councillors present, so the recommendations are carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So thank you, that is carried. And what I suggest is that we have, pardon? Oh, I've got the next section. I was having a break.
Chairman.
Yes.
Yes. It's Rosemary here. I've put a message in the chat box. Could I have a word?
We're still on business at the minute.
I know, but you've just taken that vote, and I wanted to say something about it. If I can,
well,
please.
Well, say it now.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I say, first of all, I found the last hour, or whatever, most intriguing. I enjoyed the debate, such as it was, but what I'd like to say is, because I knew Mrs. Thatcher, which all right labels me as an oldie.
We've got to stop now because we have still got some more things to look at, so to debate. Okay, so sorry, deal with it later. Okay.
To do with the actual.
I'll deal with it. Can we pull the plug, please?
Right.
We'll deal with it later. Thank you. Right,
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We've actually voted on the recorded vote for 1 to 9 plus Appendix H plus the amendment by Councillor Clack. So now we're on to the housing revenue account. So this is recommendation 10 through to 17. Now, this doesn't have to be a recorded vote, so I propose to take it through voting by exception. Please only vote in the chat box if you are abstaining
or
if you are against. This is recommendations on the housing revenue account, recommendations 10 to 17, which is part page 32. Members, can you also please stop the chat within the chat function? It's very unprofessional and members of public can actually see this, please. So we are now on the vote on the housing revenue account. So please only vote if you're abstaining or against. Madam Chairman, I think we've completed that vote. So we do have 3 abstentions, 1 person against. So that's 48 for. We have 52 members voting today. So therefore, the recommendations 10 to 17 are carried.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. That's good. Am I finished now with this? Can I go on to say a break? I'm just seeking advice as to whether I can actually say, can we have a break? And I suggest that we have a 10-minute break. Okay, so see you in a moment.
Chairman, can I come in and say my piece? Chairman.
It's on a public loop. So I think at the end of the meeting, that would be better.
No, seriously, it was to do with the last bit, the last part of the meeting.
So I'm sure we can deal with it, but I'm sorry, it'll have to be at the very end of the meeting.
Okay, fine.